All right. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Tuesday morning. This is the Chameleon Church Show. I'm your host, Allan Aguirre, coming to you live and direct from Park City, Utah, where, yes, it's still freaking snowing. I don't know, man. So yesterday, a friend of mine was out with his daughter camping and fishing 2 hours from here. And on the way home, they were going through a blizzard. And this guy, what's that? Okay, sorry. Oh, you know what? Do I have my mute on? Yes, I do. So check this out. So a 2 hour drive from here, he's driving home from fishing and camping, and they get into a blizzard, and he drives on for his like winter side job. He drives snow plows for Sundance Resort, which is about 16 miles from here. You know, Robert Redford's place. So he's that guy. So he's used to this, and he's like, he said he was scared. So that's not cool. 2 hours away. It's still snowing around here. I'm so over it. And I know everybody else is too. Not just me. A lot of people are around here. But anyway, it's another Tuesday. It's May 28th. May is gone. May is gone. I've been wearing layers for 7 months, people. 7 months. I'm so over it. But
Well,
hey,
this is warming. This is global warming.
yes, it is. It's so warm. It was so cold yesterday. It was no fun. So it's Tuesday, May 28th, the Chameleon Church Show. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, the esteemed Rabbi Darryl won't be joining us today. He's doing an event with his son, some sort of athletic event. We couldn't remember what the actual sport was, so we were thinking of what's the name of that game they play in Harry Potter on the broomsticks, and they're trying to make goals. Yeah, that'll spark something.
Lacrosse?
I don't know. It's not lacrosse. It's like this is like lacrosse, but it's on broomsticks. They're flying around. Anyway, it's I don't know the name of the game. I just thought I'd throw that out there. And some of you will be asking, that's the second Harry Potter reference Alan's made in the last week. Oh, there it is. Quidditch. Somebody knows. How would you know that? Bad Christian. So instead of since Darryl won't be here this morning because he's busy working, he's busy with his son playing Quidditch or whatever it's called. We have Father Time. Father Time has joined us this morning. Father Time, say hello to the Chameleon Church audience. Your face is half gone, but go ahead and say hello.
Yes, Darryl. Yes.
You have to excuse Father Time. He's a little. And if you hear some humming in the background while we're talking, it's gonna be him. Oh, isn't that right? No, this is Mark.
Yes, Darryl. Yes.
My name's not Darryl.
Yeah.
All right, this is Mark. Mark is the owner, administrator, big cheese of Messianic Lamb Radio Video Network, or our YouTube. He's our boss, so we got to behave today because he could just pull the plug on us. He could fire us all. Mark, you want to say hello to the Chameleon Church audience?
Goat cheese.
Goat cheese.
Goat cheese.
It's gonna be one.
If you're gonna be the big cheese, be the goat cheese. Going up on it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay. I couldn't see myself, so I need to kind of. Where am I at? Oh, that's why. My
See what I'm talking about, people? See what I'm talking about?
what? There we go.
I kind of feel out of the loop. You guys have these flags behind you? I don't have any flags. I just have this set behind me. This office set.
You're talking about getting the OBS or whatever it's called, I think like that. Yeah, you can do anything you want with that, man.
I'm gonna be switching over to that. We're gonna do some high tech stuff around here. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited about it, and I think it's gonna be good.
What are you getting? I'm not sure if I'm familiar with the term.
OBS Studio. It's a open source video recording studio for stuff like this, and You're able to do titles. You could do the lower third, like down here, you could have your name. So whenever you talk, it would have your name and your contact information that you would want. And you can switch them. So whenever you pop up, we can switch it to whoever's talking down here, like a real broadcast.
Have you ever done Be Live?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
So OBS is like it's like the ruling. It's what everyone's using, and then you can do a green screen with backgrounds. You can do titles. You can do segues, like scene segues. Like for example, when I'm promoting my stuff, I could hit a button and it would be like a screenshot of the book or a video clip or an audio clip. It's like a control room, but at the same time, we can still do the Google Hangouts and have the multiple speakers through their virtual camera. And then we're also talking, and here's the big secret. I wasn't even going to talk about it, but since Mark brought it up, I'll mention it. There's another software that I'm going to be getting where we will be able to simulcast to other platforms. So right now we're talking about, for example, this show is on Tuesday morning on Messianic Lamb Radio Video Network. Well, it would still be here, but we'll be able to feed this show over to another network that I work with called Take on the World TV. And some of you in the chat are going to be going, woohoo, because it'll be awesome. And we'll still be able to run comments on the side, live chat. So we would be broadcast on 2 different platforms at the same time. And we can do even another YouTube channel if we wanted. We could do up to 3, I believe, as well as a Facebook live feed. So we're just talking about, expanding the brand, getting the message out there. That's what we're talking about. And so since we're working with Take on the World, I speak at their live conference. Chris and Liz are awesome. I haven't met Mark personally. I have met Chris and Liz personally. And, I said this to Chris and Liz at last year's Take on the World when we were having our big conference and all the speakers were, anyway. You can just see Jesus all over Chris and Liz. It's amazing. They just radiate the Father. And anyway, so we're talking about expanding the brand, partnering, that kind of stuff. I'm pretty excited about it. Hopefully we'll be able to get this going in the next month or so. I leave in about 3 weeks for the Rude Awakening TV show that I'm doing. So hopefully we'll be able to do it after that. What's that?
Shameless plug.
Oh man, you know what? I'm known for decades for being a ruthless self-promoter. Somebody's got to do it. I took off my author hat. I wrote the book. Now I have my marketing and promotion sales hat on. See, you don't think I do this for nothing, do you? No. I'm just
hey, that's my line, man. You don't think I do this for nothing, do you? Hey,
oh my gosh.
You know how I do the intros for War Room? Like when you come on there and it comes and introduces you and Judith and all that kind of stuff. And, I can, right now, I could do, literally, hold up just a second. I want to do, I could do this deal. Hold up. Well, it won't work. You can't do one and the other. So we share, we do this like this. And put this up there, and you can do all kinds of stuff. Yeah, right there. See, could have done the other one. Yep. So I can. There we go. See, you can see the website.
Yeah.
Sit there and show you all kinds of stuff. But that's with Hangouts. You can do the screen share.
Yeah.
But with OBS, you can work with both. And actually, with OBS, you have to work with both. When you're doing Hangouts, it works together. But
right,
amazing stuff.
I
know a lot of people that use it.
From what I understand, go ahead, Jamie.
Is it all going through like Google Chrome, or do you have to, like if you have a Mac?
It's web based, so it doesn't. So it's regardless. It's web based, but they have them for PC and they have them for Mac.
Okay.
And so it's just so it's a studio. So instead of just your camera, whatever camera you're using, you actually have different. It's got stuff you can do. So you can do hotkeys. So it's just like one button. You can set up the hotkey. So when you start talking, I can hit a key and it'll have your lower third. And And then they have scenes. You can set up scenes. So like for like what Mark just showed, he showed a screenshot. But let's say you have a video. Let's say you want to run a 30-minute video commercial or a video clip or promo. You just boom, hit that scene, and then boom, that's what you'll see. It's going to be, yeah. I'm pretty excited about all that stuff. So
now, do you have to you can download it? Do you have to? What do? You buy it?
No. The OBS Studio is free, so you can get that free. I don't know exactly what the link is.
Open source.
Yeah, it's open source.
It's open source, meaning that once you download it, you could actually, if you know how to create code, you could even change how it works and what it does. Yeah. It's free. It's for everybody to use. Yeah. And there's a lot of open source out there.
It's socialist software.
yeah, there you go.
Oh, shut up.
So OBS, do a search for OBS, like Oscar.
I'm downloading it. I'm doing it right now.
OBS Studio, it's free.
I'm downloading the studio right now.
Awesome, yeah. And then the simulcast software I'm looking at using is like the cheapest I found out there, and it's called Castr, CASTR. That does cost. There is a monthly fee to that, but it's going to be good.
So
there's Kevin. I was wondering where Kevin was. Good morning, Kevin.
Jamie, you know Nita and Zach, right?
Yeah.
Zach has been using it for years. Anything that you see Nita do is all got to do with OBS. Zach is, well, I already knew it before Zach turned me on to it, but we've talked about it. So, yeah, if you've seen her do anything of her videos and stuff, then that's what it is OBS.
So we're talking about upping our game. Upping it, and then as well as like I said, expanding our territory, being able to link simulcast onto other networks. That'll be a lot of fun. It'll be good. I think it's good.
Hey, I brought a couple of friends, if you don't mind. I think this would be a good time to introduce a couple of my friends, if you don't mind, Alan.
Sure,
okay. Well, my first friend.
Oh no! Here we go.
Larry, and Larry has come and wants to speak to everybody. Here you go. Here, Larry. Hello, everybody. I'm Larry, and I want to thank everybody, all you Messianic people, for not eating me and my family. That makes us live a lot longer, and it's really bad when you discriminate against, even lobsters. I want to introduce my brother. This is my brother, Darryl, and my name's Larry. This is my brother, Darryl. I have another brother named Darryl that's usually on this show, and we want to thank everybody for not eating us, because that helps us to live longer, and we thank you for being Messianic. So thank you very much. There you go.
I seriously don't know what to do now.
Oh.
I did sneak out and get a cup of coffee, and my 2-year-old and 4-year-old grandkids, turn that off. And then my granddaughter's like, that's annoying. They could hear it.
Well, that's not the first time that's been said about me.
Oh my gosh. I think the quality of our show has just gone up a whole bunch. Wouldn't you say, Jamie?
I thought it was pretty crabby.
Crabby? Oh my gosh.
Well,
yeah.
I want to let everybody know I invited myself onto the show today. Now Darryl wasn't going to be on. It's not like Alan got a hold of me and said, hey, Darryl's not going to be here today. He's playing tennis with his son. And I want you to come on to the show. He didn't do that.
He's like, hey, maybe I could join you. And since he's the boss, what am I gonna say? No. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. All right, well, man, Tuesday morning, we got a cool Torah portion here. let's so I'm looking at the New Testament piece. Let me bring it up real quick. Dun dun dun. Where is it? You got to figure out which browser I'm on my iPhone.
Raise your hands. I mean, I thought that's what we were doing when Alan raised his hands. Don't we?
Oh, no. Contrary to popular belief, we're not a cult.
Let's see my T-shirt.
Oh, there you go.
Property of Yeshua.
Are you guys selling that shirt on
We used to.
on the website?
We used to.
So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, share. You can also watch this over at the Lamb Radio Video Network website. What's that URL, Mark?
MessianicLambRadio.com.
Messianic Lamb Radio.com.
Messianic Radio is a whole nother network, and Lamb Radio is a Catholic state radio station.
So make sure it's MessianicLambRadio.com.
Si, senor.
Okay. And if you go over there, they have you can donate to the cause to keep to. I don't know where that money goes because this is all free. I don't know. I'm not asking. Don't ask, don't tell. But
man, thanks a million. That is that donate promotion I think I have ever heard. Can I actually cut that section out and use it?
But I can't tell them to go and donate to pay for the YouTube server space. I don't, and you know what? And it's none of my business. I just give to Lamb Radio Video Network so Mark can. I don't know.
Dude.
And
so who do you think puts up the little notice there so you can come on and hit start hangout on air?
That's right. That would be Mark.
Who do you think made the website where you can click on it and watch any show you want, man? And who saves all the, so.
Yeah, so that's true. So I don't have to even think about it. I just open the page and click one button because of Mark. So now that Mark's made that very clear, donate to Messianic Lamb Radio because it goes right into his pocket.
I'm using this as a promo, man.
It's a great promo. It's called transparency. It's a great promo. I set it up. I go, I don't know what to do with this, where the money goes, and you're like telling us where the money goes. That's awesome. A workman is worthy of his. I don't know what. You know what I'm trying to say. It's in the Bible. And then they also have merchandise, so you can go over to.
No, we don't sell a thing, man.
I thought you guys had merchandise.
We don't sell a thing. We used to have T-shirts like these T-shirts and stuff.
I thought you guys still had merch over there.
Nah, I used to every week, and I'm going. Yeah, Alan, don't say that because we.
I've been saying it every week.
I know you do.
So go and buy the stuff that's not there.
Hey, if you want the shirt off my back, man, I'll give it to you.
And I heard that Mark also takes like Chili's and Chili's gift cards. You know, the little dinner cards.
Oh, to eat at Chili's? Yeah, sure, you bet. Bring them on.
Red Lobster is his favorite. Red Lobster is his favorite place.
What I have to put up with just to have a network, man.
No, it's down there at Henry's Barbecue.
Yeah.
Bob's Barbecue over there.
Joe's Crab Shack. If you can find a Joe's Crab Shack, I know they're in Dallas. If you can find one of those, send him one of those gift cards. $20 stuff.
I will have to say though, this is probably the last time I'll invite myself on.
Why? Are you not having fun?
Oh, I'm having a blast, man.
Okay.
But yeah.
If you look at the live chat, our audience is mesmerized.
Wow. My left speaker has been out on my headphones, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just pops in. So, wow, that's cool.
That's healing. But did you notice our audience is mesmerized in the chat room? They have no idea what's going on.
Kind of dropped in the numbers there.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. And now we went from 5 to -5. So this week's Torah portion, if you go to the gospel section, it's in Matthew chapter 16, 20 through 28. What's so funny?
I think I'm muting the
Oh, okay.
gospel section. I love it. That's good. Your Bible, you go to the gospel section. I love
See, right here. It says gospel, Matthew.
Okay, it's fine. It's cool, man. I'm sorry. It just hit me funny. That's all.
Well, okay. Is this if you go to the New Testament portion? Is that better?
No, we're all Hebrew here. The Brit Hadashah will work.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, if you go to Matthew chapter 2, I have to say modest Yahoo.
Cool.
Oh my gosh.
Cool. It just makes you look more intelligent.
or that much more wacky. Oh my gosh. So if you look at the math in Matthew 16 verses 20 through 28. So Jesus has strictly charged the disciples to tell no one that he was Messiah. I love that. It's like, he was so on the downline. We've talked about that before in this show, about the Proverbs and parables, why he spoke in parables, so that they wouldn't understand what he was saying, so that they wouldn't believe, so that they wouldn't be healed. Yeah. So in verse 21, from that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you." But Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." So I love this piece because I call it the dimensional realm of practicality. And hold on to your seats there, Jamie. I wrote about a little section in my book, This Thing is Spiritual, available from planetbluemedia.com. And I just wanted to read that little this little tiny section out of the book regarding this, because it discusses this. And it's the point that I want to make here.
Of course.
Of course. Because the majority of our day-to-day mundaneness is lived out in the dimensional realm of practicality, we, because we're humans and because we default to our humanity, walk in our practical reasoning. We lean on our own understanding. We don't live in or by the Spirit for the most part, so our processes are carnal. We process our reality in and with our carnal minds and understanding. We lack the tangible revelation that everything in life is played out in the spiritual realm, and that this physical realm is only the cause and effect of that spiritual reality. Our physical is a manifestation of the spiritual, period. This is the case regardless if we believe, agree, or understand this. We have been convinced that we are humans attempting to have a spiritual experience. No, we are spirit beings having a human experience, much in the same way that the supernatural is still natural. It's just super. This changes everything once we grasp it, understand it, and walk in it. Everything Jesus said and did speaks to this reality that we are spirits having a human experience. The teachings of the New Testament address this and instruct us to live in the Spirit, in order for us not to carry out the desires, the results of the flesh, carnality, our humaneness. Spirituality and carnality are in complete opposition with one another. Galatians 5. This example, the processing of our lives through and in the realm of practical reasoning, the carnal, Jesus called demonic. So then I quote this verse in the book. So Jesus is going to die. Peter rebukes him and says, "No, you're not going to die." And Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." Basically, that's not you don't want Jesus to call you Satan. And he explains why he says that. And that's because Peter was not using God's thoughts. He wasn't processing this information through the Spirit. It was through his flesh. So it was in opposition to the Spirit of God. It was a very practical, reasonable, and rational thing for Peter to react and say what he said about the coming death of Messiah. But it wasn't said based on the spiritual, and that made it unacceptable. Peter wasn't thinking with God's thoughts. He was thinking with man's thoughts. He was thinking carnally. He wasn't processing in the Spirit. He was processing with his practical reasoning, and it lacked spiritual discernment. The revelation of being spirit beings that are having a human experience was understood by Jesus and in turn taught to his disciples. The red letters attest to this, and so do the epistles. Peter's rebuking Jesus. Jesus rebukes Peter, says, "Get behind me, Satan," and he calls it demonic. When we defer, when we submit to our human practical reasoning, it's demonic. Here's the proof text. Jesus says so. We cannot continue to be like that. We can't live like that. What good is all our studying and all the information we know and that the Lord has revealed to us, all our prayer and all our fasting? What good is all of that, right? Because that's what we do, right? We're watching shows like this. We're reading the scriptures. We're praying. We're fasting. We're doing all this stuff. And then something horrible happens. Something hits us from, we get broadsided by reality, by the world. It could be tragic. It could be a horrible scenario, a death, a loss of a loved one, a loss of job, whatever. That's when you're supposed to utilize, that's when you're supposed to take all this information, right? All the prayer and all the fasting and all the studying and all the reading and put it into application. That's when you apply everything you've been, it's like you're working out, you're lifting weights, you're in the gym, you're running, you're doing whatever in the spirit realm by reading and fasting and praying. That's when you're supposed to apply that, what you've been training for, to the situation, to the circumstance. But far too many times, far too many of us will revert back to our physical mindset, our physical reasoning, and we lose our spiritual authority when we do that. And then we deal with that situation in the flesh, in the carnal. For example, when Peter was walking on water and he sees a wave coming and he starts to sink and he says, help. Jesus says to him, oh, you have little faith. The breakdown of that is this. Peter is walking on water and he sees a wave coming and he realizes, oh crap, I shouldn't be able to do this. I'm walking on water. And he sees this and he relinquished his spiritual authority, reverted back to the dimensional realm of practicality, his flesh. And then he started sinking. And Jesus says, why did you stop believing that you were doing what you were doing? Because he was walking on water. I believe he snapped out of it and they walked back to the boat. Either way, when we decide to rationalize or process or deal, or right, when we decide to deal with our physical situation, it could be anything. It could be health, money, whatever. When we decide to function in the flesh with that scenario, we lose our spiritual authority in the situation, and it's demonic. What do you guys think about that?
Well, this has been a real good show, man. So thanks a million for inviting me on, or I invited you on. This has been really good, man. Thanks a million. Thank you. Good.
We've got to walk in the spirit. We've got to process in the spirit.
All right. Now let me read you a little bit out of my book here. It's all right. You don't want to hear what I've written. It's good. I like everything you said is dead on. I mean, it really comes down to I'm reading this and listening to you read it, and it's kind of like I would have probably said real close to exactly the same thing. Once again, too, we have to realize that this is the New Testament. It's the Brit Hadashah. It's not written so much in a way or translated in a way that we can see the real spirit behind what he's actually saying. If Yeshua is exactly speaking in Hebrew, he is not saying, "Get behind me," Satan. I believe that he is expressing himself in a way that Peter, who once again has already spent over 3 years walking with Yeshua. And we have to know that they didn't spend day and night 24/7, 365 for over 3 years together. They still went, the disciples went along their lives. Yeshua went along their lives. And in the same way as you're talking, they're learning, but let's take it all the way back to before Peter meets Yeshua. He's Hebrew. He's raised Hebrew. He knows the Torah. He knows what's being taught in the synagogue. He knows all this, or wouldn't have accepted Yeshua in the first place as the Messiah. So he already knows basic walk with God. Here comes God, and he's walking with him. And so it gets down to this point after 3.5 years, and Yeshua is saying, it's time for me to go. He had already talked to Peter and the other ones about this. It's not the first time he's raised this issue. And Peter, I believe Peter is thinking more of himself and not in that spiritual way. Like you said, when he says, "Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you." He's thinking more along the lines of, I don't want you to leave. I want you to stay and be a part of my life. I like this life. I like what you've taught us before. I want to continue on with this. If you leave, then I am not confident enough in myself that I may stay, and keep going on with this, which we understand. We know a little bit more about his history after that, where he's going to go from here. But in exactly what Yeshua said, it's the same thing each and every one of us have done. I was raised Christian. And so coming into this lifestyle, as with most all of us who have a previous religious system before we decide to walk in this lifestyle, we revert back to that. But yet we're supposed to be, if we, like Peter, being raised under Torah, there should be a spiritual aspect there already. So his mind, his soul should already have that spiritual aspect, and even more enhanced with Yeshua walking with him. So he gets to this point, and I think the reason this is in our Brit Hadashah is to help us to understand a lot of things with Moshe failed many times, but yet considered the greatest prophet that ever lived. It's in the last paragraph of Torah. Moses, the greatest prophet that ever lived, yet he failed many times also. Means we're all going to fail many times also. I had another thought. I can't think of what it is now, but it's not that Yeshua even would call us Satan. I think it comes down to, I know it comes down to, he clarifies the "get behind me, Satan." If he had not added, "you are a hindrance to me, you're not setting your mind on the things of God, but of the things of man." If they had not added that extra sentence in there, then we'd all be like, Yeshua, what? Calling him Satan? You can't do that. That doesn't work. But the other sentence clarifies, and it clarifies the whole thing. It clarifies our lives. Until the day we go on to be, and our soul goes away from the body that was never meant to go on, until the resurrection. Until that day, we're still always going to be a little spiritual, a little rock and roll, a little country, a little spiritual, a little not spiritual, a little, physical, the whole thing. All of us are going to be there. I like the fact that when I'm reading Torah, that I find that Moshe, from the time he met God, was not perfect from then on. I like the fact that Peter, which I relate to a whole lot more than a lot of the other disciples, was not perfect from the time he met Yeshua, even though he should have had a spiritual beginning even before that. So I think it's important to all of us to see these words and understand these words. That's where I would come from that.
Cool. Thank you. Jamie?
Yeah, I think again, this is to show the contrast between, like you say in your book, the spiritual walk and the physical walk. And Peter's such a great example because he's an extremist, and whatever he does, either he's full bore spiritual or he's full bore physical, flesh. He kind of makes up his mind and goes one or the other. And what I love about this is it's a preparation for where he's going, because we got more story about Peter coming up here in the near future where he gets transformed. And I think that's what's exciting to me, is to know what he was like as in the Gospels. It's sort of like what we see in our Messianic movement. A lot of people get into the Torah and what it is, but they forget that there is a whole scripture that brings us into the spiritual realm in a different way. It raises us to a level where we can receive that spirit, and we can have that spirit helping us from within and giving us more revelation, understanding, so that we can operate in a way that we couldn't prior to having it. And we see the drastic change in Peter on the day of Shavuot, on the day of Pentecost, in Acts chapter 2. Again, here's the man that hours before had denied the Messiah, and he told him just earlier that he would never deny him, and he denied him just like Yeshua said he would, because he's in the flesh. He didn't have the extra power that he needed to overcome the fears or the regular things that keep man so enslaved, if you will. And again, we are trapped in this physical body that we have right now. We weren't intended, the spiritual part of who we really are was not intended to be locked up like we are. We're entrapped. We're in a situation where we have to develop to the point where we live outside of this physical world into a dimension of the spirit. And it's actually a different level of living. It's a different space where we rise to, and it's in our thought. It's in our thinking capacity. It's what we do. It's not just stuck inside of us. Our thoughts are outside of us. And the energy of the waves that we send out to other people is coming from either the spiritual source, which is really in our heart. If we have the word written in our heart, then we can produce a different amount of wave energy that will go forth and really make a difference. And so I see Peter at this point. It just shows me again how our thoughts change everything. He tried to tell Lord that he's not going to let this happen. I'm just too tough. But guess what? He's not. None of us are. But once we get released in that spirit, we can change everything. And I'm excited about your book. You haven't sent me a copy, but I didn't get the first book. Oh. But I think just from the little bit that you've written,
I'll put them both in the mail for you today.
Okay, I've heard that before. Yeah, if you listen, I mean, what I've listened to you say in your book sounds really good. It sounds like on just in our Messianic world. We have to start operating not only from the Torah, but from the Torah and the Spirit. We've got to operate in the Spirit to the place where we're operating completely different. We're not arguing or fighting. We're walking in a way that we have power. because we're here. We're at the crossroads of America. We're at the crossroads of what God, I think, is laid out for us to be in an end time scenario. And if we're not going to walk with the Spirit, we're not going to be able to do much good for the kingdom, for the Father. And I think all of us have been prepared to be part of that, what's coming. And we got to be spiritually on top of it. And right now, I just think we got a ways to go. Hopefully this book, that's why I want to read it, so I can promote it. I think you've written it at about a third grade level that we probably can all understand it, no matter what. You wrote it at a third grade level, right?
I have no idea what level it is. I have no idea. All I know is that I don't have a doctorate in divinity. So I'm an old punk rocker from Los Angeles. So whatever level
we'll dig it. Whatever level that is. That'd be cool. See, you walking from that, where you came from, into the spiritual life that God has changed you to, and I'm sure you relate to that in the book. It's a whole different world. You look at everything like, gosh, like you were once a Democrat liberal, now you've been changed to a red Republican, right?
I was never a Democrat liberal, ever.
Well, you live in California.
Still, I've never voted Democrat. I've never been a liberal. That actually came up a few years ago with the incredibly popular Christian rock band, the singer. I posted something on Facebook that was pro-Israel, and he commented. So he was live, he was public, and he said, "What happened to you, Allan? I remember when you were the coolest punk rocker on earth. What happened to you?" And I was like, hold on, no. And I was like, well, let's talk about that. You're probably talking about me from 20 years ago, which put you at about 17. Well, 20 years ago, I was using Hebrew names and phrases in my songwriting. I was pro Second Amendment, and I voted Republican. And I was very vocal about my faith, my right-wing faith. So, I've been doing this same exact thing this whole time. You're the one that went somewhere off the track. So here you are in your mid-30s, and you're over here. I'm still exactly where I was 20 years ago. Well, you know what I mean. I don't mean exactly, but I still subscribe to the same belief standards that I did 20 years ago. That's what happened.
Always somebody else's fault.
Yeah. It's not mine. I believe the same exact thing I believe today that I believed 20 years ago. You're the one that shifted. You're the one that went that way. That's what happened to that 20-year-old punk rocker kid or that punk rocker guy. You deviated, not me. And it's, you know what? Here's the beautiful thing about the internet. You can go back and watch interviews and read interviews on me from the 90s, and I'm saying the same stuff. I'm literally saying the same stuff.
The dregs, you lost the dregs means that you completely changed everything. Your
dregs, not the
dopamine
dregs,
and your serotonin is running in different flows through your brain now. The whole thing, I mean, I look exactly like I did when I was in high school. So, nobody can say that about me.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Jamie, for the benefit of our viewers and watchers or whatever that might be new, can you explain what you were talking about? And don't take an hour, but can you explain a little bit about what you meant by energy and stuff like that? I don't need these people thinking that we're talking weird, goofy stuff, because we're not. I know what you're talking about, and those that have been around know what you're talking about. But we've got some new, I'm pretty confident we have some new viewers that are pretty new to this show that haven't watched this for the last year plus. It would be awesome if you could explain to them that you're not talking about Kundalini spirit and all the other nonsense they're convinced of. Could you explain that in 5 minutes?
Well, it's a little. I don't know if whoever the listener is, I'll encourage them to look up Dr. Bruce Lipton on the internet, because he really talks about the science of believing and the science actually of how thought works, and he gives a lot of scientific information about the cells, how they work, and what really produces this energy. Every cell apparently has a negative and a positive force, inside and outside. They're opposite, and they create an energy field. And in that energy field is where things really happen. They, in the recent years, really, they've found more and more about how this works. That the waves, the sound, and the light waves are really where this energy is. That a lot of times we don't have any idea. We can't even see it. As far as what we've studied before is the physical elements like the atom and the molecules and how the electrons circle the atom and how all this works. What they're studying now is the space between the atom and the nucleus, and there's all kinds of energy that we never knew, and there's all kinds of waves and things that create that. Now, we as human beings have the ability to produce thought, and in that thought it produces waves. Now, I'm not talking, I'm talking about what the Spirit of God does when he transforms us, when we receive the thought that we have received the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of the living God in us. Then it starts working with who we are, our soul, our body, our flesh. And as we learn to transform our mind into thought patterns, the energy that we produce really in our heart, we are able to send out a whole different wavelength that will change situations in a way that we never could before. It's like what Peter did when he was stood up in the church after he received the Spirit of God. He became a completely different man. That the man that he was prior to that was a man full of fear, behind closed doors, locked. When he received that Spirit, he no longer was entrapped in a body or a physical body that was controlling his thoughts. He received the Spirit that enlightened and was able to produce the thought that he could bring forth the message of the Savior and the salvation that meant, and transform people into different beings instead of just walking around being soul, body and soul. Now they have a spirit which transforms them into where they can operate this power from on high. This is, energy is what God is. God is energy. He's everything. There's not a place that he's not in. You look into your room, like I'm looking in this room right now. Everything in my room has energy from God. He created everything. So he's with us, around us. And he's in the area that sometimes they call the field. He's in everything. That's who he is. Yeah. And he created us as far as that goes.
So, and just so that everybody knows, we're talking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Elohim. We're not talking about some nebulous energy God. And the energy that Jamie's talking about is also, we also see in the Bible, is called the power. It's the Holy Spirit, and it's the Ruach HaKodesh. It's a power. When Jesus said, "I am," and they fall down. A lot of the listeners are probably familiar with, we know that flowers radiated energy, or music, sound waves, string theory, quantum. You might be familiar with some of those things. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about any weird Eastern religion type of thing. We're talking about what we, hopefully that's clear. I'm pretty sure it is.
Well, we're talking about spirit life, which is a different realm than you live in, what I live in. We live in a physical body and soul. And when we get into spiritual things, it's outside of what we see. Right. So if we don't have a connection with the right spirit, now because God created everything, there are other things out there. There's demons, there's, sons of Cain, if you will. There's, all kinds of stuff we can go into. Right. But we're not talking about that side. We're talking about the side that was created for light.
Right.
That's because we are energy.
Right. And it's like Kevin said, it's God made, not man made, and it's God defined, not man defined. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I don't need, we don't need people thinking that we're thinking over there, because I know we're not, but they might not. you guys have heard, like, if you play certain types of music to flowers or
I
plants.
think Mark's got his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead and finish your thoughts. Okay.
Oh, you know how some of us have heard that if you play certain music for plants, they'll grow or whatever. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Plus, we also see that in creation. We see that in the biblical narrative, in the scriptural narrative. Again, the power that the New Testament talks about, the Holy Spirit. We see this stuff in the Old Testament. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about anything weird Middle East. It is Eastern, but you know what I mean. You guys know what I mean. So go ahead.
Well, most everybody knows me. I mean, if you've seen me much on any of the shows or my shows or whatever, most everybody knows that I find a lot of value and have a lot of respect for the ones that have gone before us. The Talmud, the Gemara, all of the different writings of people that lived a life of nothing but Torah and studied God and knows life, and that's what they lived. I have a lot of respect for that and find a lot of value. In present day, there's a rabbi that I find of a lot of value and have respect for. There is a video out that literally changed my way of thinking, and it goes along with what Jamie's saying, but yet in an extremely simplified way helps a person to understand the difference between the soul, the spirit, and the body, and it's from a Jewish perspective. If you'll look up in YouTube Rabbi Friedman, and that's spelled Friedman, and the video is The Soul and the Afterlife, Where Do We Go From Here? Question mark. And it sounds like it's like, what happens after you die? Well, this really, he gives a simplified, like Jamie's saying, a third year, whatever, I can't think of what it was you're saying. Very, very simplified version of it.
Oh, third grade reading level.
Yeah, third grade reading level type understanding, but it changed my life. I'm seriously going to tell you that how he explains it and what he says about it is absolutely amazing, and I recommend it for everybody. You don't have to study Talmud or any of those type of things or even whatever, but the way he explains it is very good, and I recommend it. Highly recommend it.
Well, the majority of his I'm sorry, did I cut you off? Okay. The majority of us have seen The Matrix, and the whole idea behind The Matrix was that the human was an energy source. They remember copper tops. It's
the geeks version of The Salvation.
I love that movie. The first trailer, we were at the theater with some friends in Dallas when that came out, and they played a trailer for The Matrix, and my wife and I were like, "Oh my god!" And our friend's wife was like, "Ew, that just looks weird." And we're like, "Are you kidding? This looks freaking amazing." They're like wearing our clothes and they look like us. And it's like, oh man. Anyway, copper top, the human energy source. Some of us might know that when the body dies, the brain stays alive for like an additional 8 minutes or something like that because it's an energy source. So we're talking about that too. Again, it's not, so yeah, I love that movie. I love that, The Matrix, somebody's saying on the comments. That's what we're talking about. Energy, yeah, that's what we meant by energy source. If those of you that have the ability, the power, the gift of healing, will understand that energy source, because the area becomes hot, or when someone lays their hand on you, that area becomes really hot. Those of you that exercise the gift of healing or deliverance or praying for unclean spirits, or you'll know what that's yeah. So, what else?
Well, for the people out there that want to, and again, Rabbi Friedman, I've listened to. I haven't listened to that, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, he's got a PhD. He's actually an endocrinologist, but he taught at medical schools for years. I think it was in universities in Connecticut, Massachusetts. But once he just had he's a Jewish guy, and he wasn't a real firm rabbi type person. But he was Jewish, raised in the Torah. And he had his belief system set up to the point where science had kind of interfered with it, to the point where he really wasn't sure about God. And he did have, in his studies, he started seeing things and understanding things at the lowest common denominator of the cell level. And once he researched the cell, he really saw that the cell was basically had all the different systems that we have, a digestive system, a nervous system. It even has a type of skeletal system, a respiratory system. It has systems inside of every cell. It also has a way of thinking that most people think is in the nucleus, which is not a true statement. The thinking part of the cell lays in the sin and outside of itself, because it is an energy force. And these things are fascinating when you start looking at how the energy of one cell acts just like we do. It acts like a little man inside of you. And it operates to the fullest functions as it pulls out of the environment the right things that it needs, and goes to the genes and produces things that end up being compounds chemically that we need so that we function the way we do in a balanced state. It's pretty fascinating. But if you want to look at the science of believing, or Dr. Bruce Lipton, which he has probably hundreds, maybe even more than hundreds of hours on the internet, on YouTube. I've heard him personally. I've gone to his talks when I was in Portland. I've met the man. It's really interesting. These people, that just because they come at it from a different angle doesn't mean they're possessed. These guys, God can have his hand on something, and we need to be able to operate in a place of discernment. Now, what does that mean? That means you're not going to discern things as well as you can until you receive the Ruach HaKodesh, because part of the power that he's given us is not only to have the understanding and knowledge of Torah, but to have the understanding and knowledge of the discerning of spirits, which is a gift from God that we operate as a manifestation in our lives to know what's going on. We can check out somebody and see which source it's coming from, because basically it's going to come from the light side or the dark side. And basically it's out there. We just got to be able to discern it.
Yeah. An interesting question just came up.
Jamie, I'm your father.
Oh, geez. I am your father. Debbie Covington just asked a good question. It's totally... Anyway, I'd like to answer it because I think this is important. She's asking, is it true there is no longer a fivefold ministry? It's a fallacy? Just point me to the answer. I do not believe that the fivefold ministry has been done away with in any way, shape, or form. We've discussed this on this show. We're all in agreement that the fivefold ministry is still a valid New Testament teaching. And for those of you that don't know, it's Ephesians 4, 11, and 12. Jesus said the church is set up in the New Testament with apostles, prophets, teachers, evangelists, and pastors. And it also mentions it in Corinthians. The fivefold ministry is 100% still in play. Otherwise, there's no church. And the whole reason for the fivefold ministry that it says in Ephesians is so that the church, the sheep, would be raised up in maturity and taught so that they'll they'll grow and mature in the things of the Lord and not be tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. This is the established order of how things are done. You got to remember, and again, I'm not trying to be weird, but I do mention it in the new book, This Thing is Spiritual. I'm sorry.
Well, that's why you wrote it.
No, you're not. You're not sorry.
Yeah,
Don't
tell
say
the
that.
truth. Don't do that.
Don't lie. We'll never trust you again.
We have to remember this stuff that we're talking about, like the gift of healing, the gifts, understanding, learning, maturity, discipleship. All this stuff was imparted. It was imparted unto us by the leadership, and it's the duplicatable model that Jesus shows us in the New Testament, which I also explained in the book. 1 second, Mark. I see your hand. The other point I was going to make was, oh man. Oh yes, we have to remember this. This is very important. The spirit, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So, if the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, then the prophetic is still going on, which means prophets are still going on. The problem is, and again, I outline it out here, we don't actually understand the biblical instruction regarding prophets, false prophets, what to do at that point, blah, 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 blah. But so yes, the fivefold is still in effect. And I have the honor and privilege of being raised in my Christian walk. 39 years. I spent a lot of it has been around apostles and prophets. So I feel very fortunate to have that type of testimony. Mark, you're up.
Well, it's good you say that. I don't know where that came from. Why she asked that. We weren't talking about that, but I guess I've never been on your show long enough to know anything that you said.
I don't know why she asked it, but she asked it, and it's an important question.
I get it, but I mean, I don't find that anything in the Torah, the Haftorah, the prophets, the writings, the Brit Hadashah, and none of that has been done away with at all. I mean, mostly Christians are saying the Torah has been done away with. That's the only thing I know. But apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers, and I wish that I had prepared for this, because if you stop and think about many of our so-called big name teachers that are out there, they don't all, each one of them fits into one of these five categories. For instance, stop and think about Monty Judah. He fits in the prophet deal, and you have different people like Eddie Chumney that fits into the teachers category, and Dina Dye fits into the evangelist category. You know, if you'll stop and think about each one of our teachers, you know, they fit into one of these categories.
Yeah. Chuck Pierce is obviously a prophet.
100%. I totally agree. And so the present day, even in present day, all of these things fit, and they're all teachable, you know, so anyway.
Right. And I've been asked, you know, well, what are you, Allan? Are you an apostle? Are you a prophet? Are you I don't answer that question publicly, because it's just too dangerous, because, well, Allan says he's
that's right.
There's too many trolls out there. You can't talk about it publicly unless everybody already knows, because it shouldn't be like that. Like, if the three of us got together this weekend and we rose somebody from the dead, we couldn't talk about it. We would be, oh my gosh. They would come at us like ravaged dogs. It's just, it's unfortunate, but it's true.
The House would stone you, the House of Representatives.
Yeah, no, the house they called themselves church. And I really didn't want to talk smack about anybody this week, because I know we have been recently. And we almost made it. We had 10 minutes to go. I mean, I consciously was like, okay, don't say anything negative about anybody. Don't say anything, because we've been doing that. Not to talk smack. It just comes up. But it's unfortunate. If I was an apostle, I couldn't say I was an apostle, because it would freak you out. If I was a prophet, I couldn't say I was a prophet, because it would freak you out. Now, I could say this. Oh, yeah, I'm a pastor. and no one would blink an eye. I could say, oh, I'm a teacher, and no one would blink an eye. Obviously, I write books. Somebody would, and I could say, I'm an evangelist, and no one would blink the eye. But if you use the A word or the P word, forget it, man. You're screwed. So I don't tell anybody anything. Do I teach? Yes. Do I pastor? Yes. Do I evangelize? Absolutely. And that's as far as I'll go.
Go to the A and P.
Oh, I can't.
An A and P.
I do. I'll talk about that privately, but unless I send you my business card where it says the Apostolic Prophet Allan Aguirre, that's a different story.
Hey, do you try to finish up at the top of the hour?
No, if we go over, we're fine. We're not legalistic here, Mark.
You're not legalistic. Well, maybe we need to talk about that.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Yeah, it's all right.
Hey, ask Larry the Lobster what he thinks.
Larry, what do you think? Oh, I think we have it.
Debbie, you did not cause a problem. Don't listen to Mark. This is my show. You did not cause a problem.
I'm the problem. I'm the problem.
Oh my God! Oh no!
There you go. That's what. Hey, before we go though, can you?
Where are we going?
Can you give me a couple of minutes to talk about the Equality Act conference coming up? As soon as you're done with whatever you're.
Here we go.
Come on! I have not announced it.
Here's the agenda. Here's why he's here. Here's the agenda, people.
Oh, just get your book in last. Just hold a little space for that. Okay.
Hey, Alan.
Yes.
As God is my witness.
That doesn't work with me.
It doesn't?
No. Oh man. Go ahead and knock yourself out.
Oh no, as God is my witness. When it's
you
about
network
coming on your show, I never once thought about this until afterwards. So it was not my agenda. Okay, I'm actually very offended.
Oh, well, you know what? Get over it. Suck it up. Big boy pants. Let's go.
I thought Jamie says you're a jackass. No, that's text me your address. Okay, sorry.
This is a family show. You can't say that. You can only say crap or frickin'.
So you don't want me to raise my shirt again like I did last time I was on.
Oh yeah, I get in trouble for saying frickin' and crap, and you just said the JA word.
Jackass?
Yeah.
Well, it's in the Bible.
Yeah, I know. I wrote an album called.
Just don't go look up the movie. You don't want to watch the movie. Okay, so is it okay if I mention the conference then?
Yeah, we just killed 2 minutes, so you have less time now. Since you're pulling the plug at 9 o'clock. Well, my time. Stop the hour. Yeah, go ahead. Tell people about what you're doing this weekend.
Okay, Sunday, June 2nd. Sunday. I've pretty much filled up an entire day. None of the regular shows will be on except for War Room. So right after War Room, James and Abigail O'Hare and I will come on and speak to you about a bill that has already passed the House and been sent to the Senate, and it's called the H.R. 5 bill. You can look it up, just put in H.R. 5 or Equality Act, look it up. At first glance, it looks perfectly fine. It looks wonderful. I mean, come on, it comes down to the fact that nobody should be discriminated against. If you're a human being and not a lobster, of course, we discriminate against lobsters, but we should not discriminate against any human being. The problem is the wording of what you're discriminating against. And I'm going to read, there's quite a bit to this bill, but I want to read the very last line of this bill. And what it boils down to is that almost all of things that we know to be private are working themselves into the public. And let me read the last line of this bill. It's worded a little weird, but if you stop and think about what it's saying, you'll understand. The bill prohibits an individual from being denied access to a shared facility, including a restroom, a locker room, and a dressing room that is in accordance with the individual's gender identity. And what that means is that just because a person says that they are of whichever gender they want to be, just by saying that, they can now be allowed anywhere that they want. And of course, I read off restroom, locker room, dressing room. I'll give you a quick scenario of, for instance, a youth camp, a Christian youth camp, or a Messianic youth camp. Under this law, you will have to allow the gender identity person to come in, be whoever they say they want to be. They can dress like a boy and act like a boy, talk like a boy, everything, but he says that he identifies himself as a girl. That at that point, you now have to allow this boy into the locker rooms, into the restrooms, into the dressing rooms, into anything that he wants, anywhere he wants. The whole rest of this bill is all worded in a way that it is what they call a transition bill. This is just the opening to a massive amount of things that should be private being brought into the public just because a person says that's who they are. That's what the deal is. It all boils down to the LGBTQRST. Anything that a person says that they are, it makes no difference. There will be no privacy, nothing, and one thing leads to another. There are people out there that have actually given TED Talks that are really pushing this together, that literally say that a pedophile is born that way, just the same as a heterosexual or a gay person, and that they should not be discriminated against. This is not in this exact bill, but it is a something that people have identified this bill with. And once again, it's passed the House. It's up in the air to whether or not the Senate will pass it. Then it goes to the president to either veto or make it a law. If it does not pass, all they'll do is reword it and keep sending it and keep sending it and keep sending it until it gets passed. If you'll go to Wikipedia and look up Equality Act, you will see a huge paragraph of everybody, all the huge organizations, Democrats, Republicans, independents, all the different people. It's put in by Pelosi, who is pushing and pushing and pushing this. Even though the Republicans have the majority, it has still passed the House. So do your research on this. We're spending the entire, well, not the entire, most of the day. We're starting right after War Room on Sunday, so there will not be a Sunday Let Us Reason Together. But we have people that are going to be speaking. For instance, Don Hagedorn, Dr. David Jones will be there. Jamie Louie, I don't know who that guy is, but he's going to be there. Kennard Brown, Gabriel Bartlett, Rabbi Darryl Weinberg, and his wife is actually taking her 15 minutes. Frank Zakor of Opinions is on. Dave Matthews will be there at noon Eastern time. John and Sandy are both talking. Some guy named Allan Aguirre will be there. All of the Byers family will be there. Mike Clayton is sending a video. I'm interviewing Mike to create a video for this. Judith Garten and her husband, by the way. If you've not met Judith's husband, he is coming on to talk about this. Tom Collins has said that he will be there. We're looking for that. And Nitsa Moshe. I'm still talking to Brad Scott. I am going to use his name because he says he wants to do this. He's actually out on the road and will be on the road that day, but he wants to do this. So I'm even mentioning Brad's name on this, and hopefully we'll get it so that he's on there. Anyway, this will be a full day. Each person's report, their opinion, their 15-minute segment will be recorded. It will be edited out so that you can watch each person's report individually on the website. I'll create a page for this, and you'll be able to go hear each one. So if you can't be there at all or only part of the day, you will be able to hear everybody else's video and what they're doing. So this is a real big deal. Even if it doesn't pass, they'll keep putting it in. They're pushing this big time. So this is very important. Very, very important. It is setting the standard for privacies in the United States in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. A lot of the Torah community are very ignorant to the 7 mountain mandate or the 7 mountain prophecy. Just using the word 7 mountain freaks a lot of people out. And it's simply because they don't know. They're just ignorant to it. And all they've done is gone on YouTube and read all the anti stuff. They've never actually studied the pro stuff. I personally believe in the 7 mountaintop revelation and whatever word you want to use. I actually have met Lance Wallnau. I've spoken with him personally a couple, 2 or 3, whatever times, as well as online. So anyway, I bring all that up to say this. Lance has been talking about this very thing based on the mountain concept for years. I guess it's suggested that only 8% of the population has to actually hold the top of the mountain to influence society, which is what this is all about. And it's amazing how 8% can do this because there's an agenda. And if anybody saw the movie, remember the movie about the guy that tried to destroy slavery in England, and he did? Was that Wigglesworth or something like that? Yeah. So there's a movie about this guy who was championing to abolish slavery in England. And there's a scene where one night there's a knock on and he keeps losing. It's not working. And then there's a scene where someone comes over to his house late at night, and they open the door, and like all these people stream into his house that he's never met, and they all sit around the table, and they all represented the 7 mountains. They represented family, they represented government, they represented finance, they represented the religion, they represented media, they represented all the various mountaintops. And when they got all of those players on board with one agenda, and that was to abolish slavery, that's when it finally happened. And anyway, I could talk about this for hours and days. Right, Wigglesworth, right. So it's just very interesting. Lance, who's considered a prophet. He's a prophet. He's the one that pulled out the whole Isaiah 45 Cyrus thing with Trump. He's been talking about this and this agenda and that 8.5% or whatever that small percentage is, and how it works. And it's good to know this stuff, because if we understand how this stuff works, which we don't, like I said, the majority of the Torah community is anti-Lance Wallnau, anti-7 Mountain. Again, out of 100% sheer ignorance, they have no idea what it's about. So that's why they're against it. And all they will do is look at the anti stuff versus the pro stuff. But yeah, so it is important. I try to avoid politics because I've been there and done that. I was in a punk rock band. But this stuff is important. I'm not ignorant to it. I'm not doing the ostrich head in the sand thing. No, I know there's other people. That's just not my forte. But yes, and I'll be there on Sunday, and so thank you. So we are 5 minutes over the top of the hour.
I just want to clarify something, Mark. You said the Republican House, they couldn't get it passed or voted in, even with the Republican House, which kind of, I think we got a little confusion here. There's no Republican House that I know of right now.
No. Even though the majority is Republicans in some places, which you would assume would be against this, it's been mentioned, and there are a massive amount of Republicans that are for this. You actually look at the states that already have something very similar to this in essence right now. There's more states that have it than don't, and most of those are Republican states, believe it or not. That's what I meant. I may have worded it wrong.
Okay, well, that's all right. Wow, this thing is huge.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you talking about the 7 mountains just real quick.
Sure.
Because that is exactly what's controlling that. Unless we get believers, people that know the Torah and walk in the Spirit, in positions in art, in media, in all these different places, we're not gonna take back America. America has been taken through our culture already. We are not America that we were when I was born and raised 48 through the 60s. Everything's changed, folks. It's dramatically changed. With Kennedy's assassination, it really went downhill. So it's just amazing what's going on in our country. And we have somebody that's fighting for, the United States and to bring back the truth of America. And we need to be fighting too, because our grandkids aren't going to grow up in a God-fearing country, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yeah. But everybody should be able to have freedom to choose, and they sure want to take all our freedoms away, even to the point where I'm not a guy. I can be a girl. Oh, what kind of craziness is this? Just totally insanity. Yeah. I just want
That's great.
Don't get me going.
One of the reasons why people are freaked out about the 7 mountains is that we're Dominion. Oh, it's Dominionist theology. You know what? You don't understand what we're talking about. And since you don't know what we're talking about, we should have that conversation. But you can't say it's not godly or it's demonic out of ignorance, because that's just silly. Yeah. And no, we do not believe, oh, we've got to possess and dominion, we have to be dominion. What's the word? We have to possess the 7 mountains, and we're trying to do that to usher in the return of Messiah. No, that's a lie. That's not what this is about. None of us believe we have the power to usher in Messiah's return. That's just that crazy talk from the naysayers that people will latch onto, instead of actually talking to people that actually know what it is that this is about. We do not believe that if we can control the 7 mountains, that'll usher in the return of Messiah. No, we don't believe that. And that's I'm a weird Torah observant, enlightened person that doesn't know what I'm talking about voice. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, I'm not even going to get into it.
I love you, brother. I love you with a passion. I'm actually possessed by the 7 spirits of God.
Oh, man. I love the 7 spirits of God. I got them tattooed on my arm. Does that count?
I have them tattooed right. No.
Oh, my gosh. See, you just have to.
I won't show you where I've got them tattooed.
Oh, Lord. Oh, we're out of control, but that's good.
Anyway. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we're at the top of the hour. It's 10 minutes after. Thank you for joining us. Mark, thank you for joining us. I love it. I love that you're hanging out with us. Jamie, thank you for everything this morning. All of you that are watching and listening. Until next week. And we'll be in June next week. Oh. Maybe it'll stop snowing. All right. Blessings over all of you.
Release the Kraken.
Yeah. See you guys next week.